and welcome to Growing Gears' first segment from the Interview with an Engineer series. My name is Flynn, and I'm excited to help Growing Gears to connect elementary students with engineers working in the real world. I'm excited to get started, so today I'm happy to introduce Spencer, who is our interviewer for the day. Spencer is 9 years old and is going into the 4th grade. He likes Pokemon and Minecraft. I'm also happy to introduce Christian Riley as our interviewee. Chris is currently working as a process control and safety engineer for a small company in Colorado and has a degree in chemical and petroleum engineering. All right, guys, take it away.
Speak clearly.
My name is Spencer Russell.
And my name is Chris Riley.
What is your job?
So I am as I said, a process control and safety engineer. Basically what that means is I design and basically go and install these safety systems for the oil and gas field. So they basically just things like making sure things don't get too hot, things aren't overpressured, there's not too much of a gas or liquid in some type of container, and just keeping track of like what levels everything is at and how fast things are coming out of the ground and flowing into the tanks.
What do you do in your job?
So a lot. It's about 50%. 50% of the time I'm in the office and I take a look at these devices and I decide which ones they need to put in the field. And then the other 50% of the time I go out there and I have a team of technicians and they install the devices. And then I have a program that I build in the office and then I put the program into the controller and it basically controls how fast gas comes out of the ground, and it measures it. It lets you know when it needs to be trucked out. So they have these big giant trucks that come onto the site and they fill them up and then they drive those off pad. And sometimes I have to engineer better ways to get the gas out of the ground, but that's less often. But
You come to Jacksonville?
We have another company, not my company in particular, but we have another company that is based out in Jacksonville. You mean Jacksonville, Mississippi?
No, Jacksonville, Florida.
Florida. Sorry, I'm not from out there. Yeah, we do have all over the United States. There's a different. So my company is ACE. I actually started at a different company called ECI in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania. So we do have a company out there where there are people just like me that do the exact same thing. So.
What does ECI mean?
Oh, ECI is Equipment and Controls Incorporated. So it's just a different name for the same exact company that I work for, basically.
Why they name it different, but you did the same thing?
Yeah, basically, it's kind of like they have to do the same thing like all over the United States. So they just have different companies that are in different regions. So different names, just different people own them, but we all do the same thing, pretty much. Some do more things than others, and some do less. So.
What does your remote automation solutions group do? Does it have anything to do with remote controls?
Kind of, actually. It's interesting that you mentioned that. So you know how a remote control, basically you can sit on your couch and control your TV, right? So what we do when I install that program, when we're not there on the site, I can, from my couch or from my office, I can go in and change things on that site as like you would with the remote control for a TV. So sort of, yeah, it's basically we control things from far away or close up.
Interesting. An engineer builds things. What does a chemical engineer build?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, there are a lot of different things chemical engineers can do. A lot of them work in like process control, doing stuff that I do. And then there are engineers that work in the food industry, so they work on ways to package foods, work on ways to grow food better. There are a lot of chemical engineers that also work in the pharmaceutical industry. So like vitamins that you take or cold medicine. There are also chemical engineers that work in hospitals. So we build. We probably build a little bit less than other engineers do. Most of the time, we design a type of process to build something, or we regulate, like monitor some type of process. But there are chemical engineers that build cold medicine. There are chemical engineers that build like giant reactors. Sometimes you see on the side of the road with the steam coming out of them. So we're all over the place. It's really cool. As a chemical engineer, you really have the choice to do a lot of different things. If one thing isn't interesting to you, you're kind of able to move to a different field if you'd like.
What is the coolest thing you've ever engineered?
The coolest thing I engineered actually was when I was in college. You know Jello, like all the Jello you eat?
Yeah.
Right? So I had a research position where I would make basically Jello. It wasn't the kind that you eat, but it was a type of gel that you can actually put in the human body. And so like your knees and your elbows, how they bend. So I would make these gels that they were practicing putting in the human body to replace the meniscus or the cartilage that's in your elbow or your knees or your shoulders. So people who have, like, sometimes you have joint problems. So I would work on a gel that they could one day, maybe in the future, replace in those joints so that people can still move their arms and legs and their neck and everything like that if there's an accident or if they lose the cartilage that's there. So I did that my sophomore year of college, maybe junior year of college. And it was really cool. I got to go in the lab and all the kind of stuff you see on TV, kind of like with beakers, and you measure things out and you weigh them and you mix it. And it was really cool because it was a liquid. It was a really hot liquid. And then you let it sit and it turns into a solid. And it's really stretchy. It's really bendy. And that was probably the coolest thing I've engineered so far.
How much money do you make on your job?
Okay, that's a really good question too. So, for me, what I do, we have a base salary. So most jobs is just you get your salary and whatever the number is, that's what you get paid no matter what. But so my base salary is $68,000 a year, and in addition to that, because we have to control things from home sometimes, we get these bonuses every 6 months. So what it ends up being after bonuses, and sometimes we get called out so we get paid extra, it ends up being about $77,000 a year once it's all said and done. But yeah, it's really cool. Chemical engineers, there are some that get paid a lot more than that, and there are some that get paid less. But engineers, you probably heard, they get paid pretty well, so it's pretty good pay, and pretty fun work.
What do you like your job? Why do you like your job? No, do you like your job? Do you like it?
Sometimes I don't like my job. It's like any job. Sometimes it's really stressful. But the days where I really do like my job is when I go to put my program that I designed out into the field, and I see it work, because you can hear it working. You hear fluid moving through pipes. You can hear things dumping from one thing to another, and you can see lights blinking on and off. So it's just, those are the days I really love my job, because I see all of my hard work that I put in. Everything is working. Things are moving, and people always say nice things about what you do, and it's like, those are the days where I really do like my job. It feels really rewarding when something that you built actually works. Because a lot of times you'll see, if you actually do become an engineer, there's a lot of times you build something and it doesn't work and you have to rebuild it. So that's what I really like about my job. When it works, it's really awesome.
What was your job like when you started it, and how has it changed?
When I first started my job, because I was just out of college, I was a brand new engineer. It was a lot of reading and a lot of practicing and a lot of training courses. So it was kind of like school a little bit for the first few months, where you have to learn how to do the job. So I didn't really have too many responsibilities. I didn't really get to build that much at first, but they taught me how to build everything. And then after that, I started getting more responsibilities, and I started talking to different customers and working with different people on my team. So it's changed. I got a lot more responsibility, and I got to see a lot more. I got to go places that I wasn't allowed to go to before. And I traveled a lot when I first started. I would go from Pittsburgh to Ohio to West Virginia, all over the place in that area. So that's how it kind of changed over the few months that I started. So I like it.
What type of responsibilities?
Responsibility, like there are times when you have to make sure that parts get somewhere on time, and you have to make sure that you have enough people. You have to lead a team of people. So sometimes I would go out there, and there's a whole group of people just waiting for some kind of instruction. So there are days when I'm on pad, and I have to tell a whole team of people what to do. So I'm responsible if any of them get hurt. Also, after we finish, if I'm responsible if our equipment doesn't work, it can be really dangerous if things get too hot or things get too full. So it's a lot of responsibility. Like once you've been working somewhere as an engineer for a while, I know that's common for a lot of engineers. They're pretty much responsible for whatever they end up building. So
Here's my last question. What happens if your things get too hot and it's too cold?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So in Pittsburgh, it gets really, really cold in the wintertime. So when things get too cold, sometimes they stop working. So remember how I said we kind of keep track of how full things get? If things get too cold, it can freeze, and then it can keep filling up, and we'll have no idea how full it gets. So if things are too cold, our instruments don't work, and you can have spills. You can have equipment that gets like backed up. You can have plugs, and then when things get too hot, people can get hurt, because when things get really hot, they stop being a liquid and they turn into a gas. So then the gas takes up a lot more space than the liquid does. So sometimes that gas can leak out of wherever it came in from, and if there's if there's a car there, or someone smokes a cigarette or anything like that, that gas can ignite, and a lot of people can get hurt. So anytime it gets too hot or too cold, we have to be really careful to make sure our instruments are still working, because people can get really seriously hurt. So.
Well, I'm getting kind of hungry, so I'll have to see you later. Bye.
All right. Thanks so much, Spencer. I'm glad you're interested in being an engineer.
Thank you to both Spencer and Chris for participating in our first interview with an engineer. We hope you learned something new about chemical engineering. Stay tuned for our next interview with an engineer coming soon. Thanks again.